lot of times people put the responsibility for how they feel on other people. You got it.
Quick note before we dive in. If you're a woman in healthcare leadership, and especially if you're a woman physician or clinician leader looking for a space that truly gets the challenges that we experience as women leaders in medicine, check out our REMAP cohort. It's 4 months, real community, real skills, and 22 CME credits. Link is in the show notes.
Welcome back to another episode. I am your host, and as always, I am grateful to be here with you for another episode. One of the things that when I am asked to provide workshops, when I'm asked to keynote, especially around communication, when I am asked to provide trainings that I'm frequently asked to do, especially because my whole platform is trauma informed communication, which is inclusive of emotional intelligence, which includes emotional awareness, literacy, regulation, and as a pathway to effective communication, right? So that's like the domain in which I'm usually being asked to do things. But one of the things that the convener will often ask, or the leader will often ask of me, is to provide insight and language around setting boundaries and making requests. And what I find is that people have a difficult time with that because of the way they were socialized by their own families, by even society, based on identity, race, gender, religion, upbringing, all of these things, right? And hierarchies and organizations as well. Unspoken rules inside of teams and team dynamics often mirroring old family dynamics, right? And so I know for myself growing up as a Generation X person, the language of the household was be seen, not heard. And I learned early that what I want doesn't really matter. So that became something that was internalized. One of the reasons that I started my own business and my own practice is so that I could do what I want, get what I want, and that my needs and my desires would matter. How it showed up in other relationships and in my adult family dynamics was me not expressing needs, not setting boundaries, even in friendships and relationships. And so I say, how you do anything is how you do everything. And while in the context of my career, it didn't show up as strongly because I was the boss, it did show up in other ways. And so in teams and in communities and in leadership, these things can show up if you haven't had the practice of setting those boundaries or making clear requests. Oftentimes, when people make requests in service of an underlying need or desire, quite frankly, most people, when they're making requests, they make requests in ways that don't make clear what the underlying need is. They may express a want, they may talk about how a person didn't do something, they may just create a demand, have this on my desk by Friday, which is a request, but does it give the underlying reason or need for that? Or you talk too much, or stop yelling at me, which is a request and it's a boundary, right? And it's a very clear boundary and a necessary boundary. And it doesn't express the feeling, the emotion, or the need underneath. I feel like when we express the need and the feeling in congruence with the request, it actually gives the person a deeper buy-in. Now, this is not true for everyone. So this is not one of those one thing fits all kinds of things. But when you're talking human to human, many times when you say what you need or what you require, and what we feel, not how someone else makes you feel. Because that's the other thing. A lot of times people put the responsibility for how they feel on other people, and we feel what we feel. And so another person doesn't make you feel. The feeling arises from within. The person's behavior may activate something in the past that allows that feeling to arise. And you can express that. If you say, you don't listen, the picture the person might bring up in their mind might be different than if you say, I feel unheard whenever I'm constantly being interrupted. I can't get my point across, and thus I feel unheard. And in a relationship, that is important to me. I need to feel heard. I require that. So I feel, I require, and then you can state the actual happening. And that's really a way of setting boundaries that we often miss the opportunity for. And when we do that, oftentimes the person can hear us a little bit differently. Oh, and it forms a different picture. Now, here's the thing. Some people may get defensive. So if you're on the other side of that, there may be a tendency to be defensive. But it's important to recognize when there's a need, and especially a person might get defensive if the boundary is being set with them. I'll give you an example. Me and a friend of mine, we do these sort of video chats, Marco Polo, pretty much daily. And we used to sometimes Marco Polo over lunch. So I would send her a Marco while I was eating lunch, and she would send me a Marco while she sent me a message. It was a Marco Polo message. And she said, I meant to share this with you, but I've been having trouble hearing and understanding you when you video me when you eat. And what you say is really important. So I'm making the request that we not eat during our Marco Polos. That was a beautiful way to have expressed that, right? She said what she was observing, what her experience, right? It may not necessarily have been a feeling, but it was her experience. She shared her experience. She shared what she desired, which was to be able to hear and connect to me during my video messages. And then she made the request. And what she did, how she went above and beyond, was saying that I request that we not, so that she was including herself and him asking this of you, but I'm going to also take on the responsibility of that. It was just a very beautiful way to make a request. And when I received that, I was like, oh, like I didn't realize that was happening. That was your experience. And since then, we haven't video messaged while we've been eating. Like at first, we had a couple of slips where I maybe took a bite or something, like, oh, and then I started to take a bite, or she started to take a bite. But then we got used to this is the new norm. So when you express yourself, I need, I feel, I require, or my experience is, like when this happens, this is what I experience. It gives a person maybe a fuller picture of why you're making the request.
Hey, before we get back to the episode, I want to take a moment to share something close to my heart. 17 years ago, someone saw my leadership before I could see it myself. That experience changed everything for me. And that's exactly why I created the Remap cohort. If you're a woman physician or leader in healthcare who's tired of being talked over, burned out from carrying conversations you don't have language for, or just craving a space where you don't have to explain being the only one in the room, this is for you. Remap is a 4-month cohort, a small, intimate community for women, physicians, and leaders in healthcare, where you'll build real communication skills and community, navigate the hard stuff, and yes, earn CME credit in the process. 22 Category 1 AMA CME to be exact. Listen, you deserve a space that pours into you, not one that continues to extract from you. Find out more, reserve your spot, or schedule a discovery call at mindremappingacademy.com. Also, the link is in the show notes.
And oftentimes people are more obliged are more likely to be willing to honor a request when they understand what's underneath or what's coming or what's behind that request. Again, it's not everyone. And I invite you to try this method of setting boundaries and making requests. Now, sometimes the boundary looks different, right? Sometimes, and especially in higher intensity environments, and maybe there's a whole conversation and podcast to be made just on that. But in higher intensity environments, we do need to be a little bit more assertive in our communication. So, for example, I was sharing with a client was sharing with me she was going to have an interaction with a person to make a change in an agreement that they have had for a long time. And the person with whom she was going to be communicating with, she had anticipated would not be happy about that and would respond and react a certain way. And so one of the things we talked about was how do you respond when a person gets big in their communication in response to a boundary being set, in response to a communication about a change or something, a communication about something that they may not be happy about. How do you set boundaries in those instances? And so one of the things we talked about was making those firm assertive requests. So one of the things I invited her to practice with me is saying, I need you to lower your voice. Talking and being intimidating will not change the outcome. I need for us to have this conversation like adults. Please, if you continue to speak to me this way, then I will need to end the conversation. I require respect, respectful discourse. So these are some of the phrases we practiced, right? And at the end of the day, if the person continues to be more aggressive or disrespectful in their speaking, then the move is to exit the conversation in whatever is the safest and most workable way to do so. So if it's on the phone, I'm hanging up now. I'm not continuing this conversation. If it's in person, I'm going to walk away now, and making sure you're in a safe environment with which you can do that and exit the area in a way that you feel safe, right? It is still a version of the I need, I feel, I require, or my experience is, but tempered to a more high stakes environment, right? Maybe more firmer voice. And here's the thing, you don't have to yell in order to be heard. You don't have to raise your voice in order to be heard. Even if a person is talking over you, you can actually continue talking without raising your voice, because raising one's voice is an indication that they want to be heard as well. It's an attempt, it's a tactic for domination, right? But oftentimes, raising one's voice is an indication that a person feels like they're not being heard. And so you can just bring that to attention. I can hear you, and I require you to lower your voice if you want to be heard. So, anyway, I think that these are a few insights that, just to bring it back around to making requests, setting boundaries, and sharing one's needs, they really are on the same spectrum. When you state your need or your experience, or you state how you're feeling, and then state what you require, the way my brain works, I need or I require, that is an effective boundary. Now, if you are needing a person to stop a behavior, you can also say, I need you to stop yelling at me because I feel nervous when people raise their voice. And what I need you to do instead. So you can actually make the request for someone to stop doing something, but make sure that you include in there why you need them to stop, what you need or require instead. Okay? So that's, again, another nuance to setting boundaries and making requests. I need you to stop leaving the lights on because it drives the power bill up. whenever you exit a room, please turn out the light. It's a boundary, a request, and it's the reason why you need that thing, right? That is a good place to pause. There are so many more things and so many more examples that I can give about I need, I feel, I require, about making requests, about stating needs, about stating feelings, about how to talk about feelings. And I mean, this is the breadth of the work that I do. This is how I coach people on a day-to-day basis around finding their voice and communicating what they need. This is the work that I do with leaders in workshops and coaching cohorts. And so if you desire more of that work, then reach out to me. We can talk about how we bring this kind of work into your organization and onto your teams. Or if you feel like you need one-on-one coaching, give us just a shout. I get so excited talking about these things because I really am a person who is committed to making sure people have the tools that they need to connect with one another and to hear one another and to be heard. And so if you found this valuable, please share this episode with a friend, a team member, a colleague, or a family member. And we appreciate when you leave a review. When you leave a review, other people recognize the value of this content and what they can bring. So leave me a comment if you're on YouTube. Leave us a review if you're on one of the platforms. Share this with a friend. Post it. Share this episode on social media when it comes out, because this truly is how we connect. We restore connection with one another. We restore connection with one another through the way we interact, listen, and communicate. All right? So go have an amazing rest of the week. And until the next time we see each other, stay